You have probably typed this into Google before. What salary is top 1% UK? Or maybe you have just sat on the tube, looked around at the suits, the Heavies vests, the coffee runners, and thought, someone in this carriage is in the top 1%. But who? Is it the banker in Canary Wharf? The tech bro in Old Street? The hedge fund guy who hasn't seen sunlight since 2008? Here is what the headlines tell you. The top 1% earn over £180,000 a year. Some say £200,000. Others say £300,000. The number moves depending on which think tank you read. But the fantasy stays the same. Private schools, second homes in Cornwall, a ski chalet in the French Alps, a life so far removed from yours that it might as well be a different country. But then something strange happens. You meet someone who actually is in the top 1%. And they do not look like that at all. They drive a 5-year-old Volkswagen. They pack a sandwich for lunch. They worry about their pension. And you start to wonder, have I been looking at the wrong people? Today, we are going to break open the single biggest misunderstanding about wealth in the United Kingdom. Because the truth about the top 1% is not what you see on Instagram. It is not what you read in The Guardian or The Telegraph. The truth is quieter, stranger, and, if you know where to look, much more attainable than you think. Let us start with the number that everyone gets wrong. According to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, to be in the top 1% of income earners in the UK, you need to earn roughly £180,000 per year before tax. That is the headline. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. That number includes everything: salary, bonuses, dividends, side income, and once you factor in income tax, national insurance, and student loan repayments, plan 2, because so many of us are still paying that off, a person earning £180,000 takes home about £9,000 a month. That sounds like a lot, until you look at their actual life. The Office for National Statistics tracks household spending, and the top 1% do not spend like oligarchs. They spend like anxious middle managers, because the gap between earning £180,000 and feeling rich in modern Britain is vanishingly small. Consider this. A 4-bedroom house in a decent part of Surrey, Hertfordshire, or the commuter belt of Manchester. That is £800,000 to $2 million. A mortgage on that with a 20% deposit is £3,500 to £4,500 a month. 2 children in private school, that is another £3,000 a month, minimum. 2 cars, a family holiday to Cornwall or Spain, the weekly Ocado delivery, the council tax band F or G, the energy bill that makes your eyes water. By the time the top 1% earner has paid for the life that looks normal for their income bracket, they are saving maybe £1,000 a month. That is not yacht money. That is, I hope the boiler does not break money. So that is the first illusion. The top 1% by income are not living like Succession. They are living like head teachers, senior civil servants, and regional directors who remortgaged at 5%. But we are not here to talk about income anyway, because income is a trap. The real top 1% in the United Kingdom are not measured by what they earn. They are measured by what they own. Let me show you what I mean. According to the Resolution Foundation, to be in the top 1% by wealth in the UK, net worth, everything you own minus everything you owe, you need assets of roughly £3, £6 million. That is a completely different universe. The income top 1% and the wealth top 1% barely overlap. In fact, most people in the income top 1% will never break into the wealth top 1%. And most people in the wealth top 1% do not have a stratospheric salary. So who are these people, the ones with £3? £6 million or more. What do they actually do for work? The data from HMRC, the ONS, and the Wealth and Assets Survey gives us a very clear answer, and it is not what you expect. The largest single occupation in the UK, top 1% by wealth, is not investment banking. It is not private equity. It is not even law. It is senior management in manufacturing and construction. Read that again, manufacturing and construction. The second largest, specialist medical practitioners, surgeons, anaesthetists, consultants. Third, corporate managers in retail and wholesale. Fourth is where you finally see finance, financial managers and directors. But here is the detail that changes everything. Most of these people did not get rich from their salary. They got rich from equity, not stock market trading, equity in a business they helped build, or equity in a professional partnership. Or, and this is the deeply unsexy truth, they bought a commercial property 20 years ago that is now worth 4 times what they paid for it. One of the most revealing studies ever done on this topic came out of the London School of Economics. Researchers took a sample of British millionaires and asked them a simple question. How did you get your wealth? The answers broke down into 3 categories. Number 1, business ownership. People who started, scaled, or sold a company, not a tech unicorn. A boring, profitable, mid-sized business. A roofing company, a chain of dental practices, a regional haulage firm. These people worked in the business for 20 or 30 years, took a modest salary, and let the value of the company compound. Number 2, professional partnerships, law firms, accounting firms, medical practices, surveying firms. Senior partners in these organizations do not earn a salary. They earn a share of the profits. And over a 30-year career, those profit shares accumulate into a multi-million-pound capital account that they can cash out when they retire. Number 3, property, but not the way you think. Not flipping houses, not being a landlord on a buy-to-let mortgage. The top 1% wealth holders in property are overwhelmingly commercial property owners or landowners. People who bought a small industrial unit in 2005 that is now in the middle of a redevelopment zone. Farmers who held onto land on the edge of a growing city. People who understood that the real money is not in residential yield, it is in planning permission. So where does that leave the typical image of the top 1%? The hedge fund manager, the private equity partner, the cryptocurrency millionaire, they exist. But they are a tiny fraction of the top 1% by wealth. And more importantly, they are almost impossible for a normal person to learn from. You cannot wake up tomorrow and become a hedge fund manager. You cannot replicate a crypto windfall. But you can understand how a regional manufacturing executive built a net worth of £4 million because it is boring, it is repeatable, and it is still possible in the United Kingdom today. Let me introduce you to someone. I will call him David. David is 57 years old. He lives in a market town in the East Midlands. He is a director at a company that makes industrial valves. The company turns over about £15 million a year. David has been there for 22 years. He owns 8% of the business. His salary is £120,000. Not top 1% income, actually, but his dividend payments add another £60,000 a year. His share in the company is worth roughly £1. £2 million on paper. He has a defined contribution pension that he and his employer have paid into for 25 years. That pension is now worth £890,000. He owns his house outright, bought it in 2001 for £210,000. It is now worth £620,000. His net worth is just over £7 million. He is not quite top 1% by wealth, but he will be by the time he retires at 62. And here is his Tuesday. He wakes up at 6 a.m, he drives a 2019 Skoda, he makes his own coffee, he worries about his daughter who is finishing university and cannot afford a flat deposit. He frets about the company's order book because a recession might mean no dividend next year. He scrolls Rightmove looking at smaller houses because he is thinking of downsizing. David is not on a yacht, he is not on a private jet. He is in a factory in Leicester looking at a spreadsheet of valve inventory. And that is the top 1% that nobody talks about. Now let us compare the United Kingdom to other countries, because the British top 1% are genuinely unusual. In the United States, the top 1% by wealth are dominated by technology executives, financiers, and healthcare entrepreneurs. In Germany, they are dominated by inherited manufacturing wealth and senior engineers. In France, by luxury goods executives and wealthy retirees. In the United Kingdom, the top 1% are disproportionately self-employed professionals and small business owners in traditional industries. The Wealth and Asset Survey shows that nearly 40% of the wealthiest 1% are either self-employed or own a share of a private business that they actively work in. That is higher than almost any other developed economy except Italy. What that means is that the British path to the top 1% is unusually democratic. You do not need a degree from Oxford or Cambridge. You do not need a job in London. You do not need a rich parent. You need a profitable skill, a willingness to take on risk, and the discipline to hold equity in something that grows over decades. But here is the uncomfortable part. Most people who could build that kind of wealth never do. And it is not because they are lazy or stupid. It is because they are trapped in a very British mindset. The mindset says, get a stable job, pay into the pension, pay down the mortgage, save in an ISA. That is sensible. That is responsible. And it will never ever make you top 1% by wealth. Because the top 1% do not just save. They own. They own a business. They own equity in a partnership. They own commercial real estate. They own intellectual property. They own assets that produce income without their labor. And they hold those assets for decades. Let me show you the numbers that actually matter. According to HMRC, the average employee in the UK saves about 6% of their salary into a pension. That is good. That is sensible. Over 40 years with investment growth, that pension might reach £400,000 or £500,000. That is comfortable. But it is not threes. £6 million. To reach £3, £6 million in net worth, you need one of two things. Either you save and invest an extraordinary amount every month, think £2,500 a month for 30 years, or you own a single asset that appreciates significantly. The vast majority of the top 1% chose the second path. One big asset, a business, a partnership share, a piece of land, something that multiplied in value while they worked. So what do you do with this information? I am going to give you 3 practical lessons from the British top 1%. These are not secrets. They are not get-rich-quick schemes. They are patterns that repeat across thousands of wealthy British households. Lesson 1. Prioritize equity over salary. If you have the choice between a higher salary and a small ownership stake in the business you work for, take the ownership stake. Negotiate for shares. Ask about partnership tracks. Buy into the company if there is a scheme. Because a salary is what you spend. Equity is what you keep. Lesson 2. Find a boring, profitable, essential industry. The British top 1% are not in AI and crypto. They are in manufacturing, healthcare, construction, logistics, waste management, engineering, agriculture. Industries that do not disappear in a recession. Industries that have been around for 100 years and will be around for another 100. Get good at something essential. Then find a way to own part of it. Lesson 3. Hold for 20 years. The single biggest difference between the top 1% and everyone else is holding period. The typical wealthy household in the UK has held their primary wealth asset, a business, a partnership, a commercial property, for over 18 years. The typical non-wealthy household sells or switches strategies every 3 to 5 years. Wealth is not a sprint, it is a waiting game. Now let us come back to where we started. The top 1% in the United Kingdom. 3. £6 million in net worth. 57-year-old directors in manufacturing, surgeons who own a stake in their private practice, farmers who held onto land while the city grew. They are not hiding from you. They are not at secret parties in Mayfair. They are in a factory in Derby, a dental clinic in Bristol, a haulage yard in Glasgow. They are working, worrying, and waiting. And the gap between where they are and where you are is not talent or luck. It is a decision. The decision to stop renting your labor and start owning something that works for you. If you learn something from this video, do 2 things. First, subscribe to the channel, because we do not do fantasy finance here. We do the real numbers, the real people, and the real paths to wealth that actually exist in the United Kingdom. And second, ask yourself this question tonight. What is the one asset you could own outside your house that would still be worth something in 20 years? Not crypto, not a meme stock, a real asset. A skill turned into a business, a partnership in a professional firm, a piece of essential land or equipment. Find the answer to that question, and you will have found your path to the top 1%.